Watch the entire video, my lovely viewers, to get the whole thing. Without wasting much of your time, let's get right into it.
This is DJ Mutati exclusive.
Hi lovely viewers, it's me again, your one and only Mutati Mpundu. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time on my channel, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel by hitting the subscribe button down below. Turn the bell icon to join the notification squad. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment. Tell me what you think about this video in the comment section below. I'll be super glad to hear from you lovely viewers.
Let us go to the other issues. The state of the Patriotic Front, it is of great worry. The late president went on leave, I think, shortly after swearing in of President Hakainde Hichilema. The reins were handed over to you to run the party, the Central Committee, and you began even a succession process. You even as a party identified candidates who should have stood. That process was rudely disrupted, and we are where we are now, where you have imposters holding to the legal reins of the party. Just speak to this matter.
Before I move to that, let me just reaffirm what you just said and reaffirm the position of the family. That President Edgar Lungu was a very special president. Special in the sense that even when the odds were against him, even when people advised him that going to the Heroes Stadium to hand over power to President Edgar Lungu was not going to be a pleasant affair, he still stood tall. He invited a number of us. I recall there was Professor Nkanduluo, there was Madam Sylvia Charlikosa, there was Madam Jean Kapata, and I happened to have been privileged to have been among them. We went to that stadium in the company of his daughter. We went to that stadium. And when President Edgar Lungu was handing over the instruments of power, President Hakainde received them. Instead, he called a private fellow, private security man of his, to receive the instruments of power, which is not done, by the way, because the instruments of power are passed from the former president to the incoming president, from the outgoing president to the incoming president. In this particular case, the one who received the instruments of power was not the president, it was his security guard. And spontaneously, there was booing and jeering. Booing and jeering by who? Obviously the stadium, 60,000-seater stadium, was filled by supporters of the current president. And he did not as much as just raise a finger to say, please, this is a former head of state. He has handed power to me in a highly dignified manner. Instead, he enjoyed that showing of hate by the 60,000 people who were in that stadium. You would have expected President Edgar Lungu to bow his head. He didn't. He walked with dignity. And when we got where we went after that, he said to us, my dear friends, I have done what I was supposed to have done, and my soul is at peace. Even when he was tormented, President Edgar Lungu still stood tall. And I have to remind the Zambian people and all those who are watching us that at the time when President Edgar Lungu decided that he was going to give away the trappings of former head of state, he was doing it for his love for his country. He had so much love for Zambia's democracy. When he saw that his Patriotic Front party was being decimated, when he realized that democracy in Zambia was being challenged, when he realized that the freedoms that our forebears suffered for and died for were being challenged by Hakainde Hichilema, he decided, I cannot continue to be quiet. I cannot continue to enjoy the trappings of being former head of state. Rather, I'm divorcing myself from being given all these benefits, if that be the case, because I want to fight for Zambia's democracy. He therefore died, not only for his dear family, he died for Zambia. And because he died for Zambia, I can say today with no fear of contradiction that they shall come in when the mortal remains of that great man shall grace his dear country. In the event that the court in South Africa do as the family have requested, there certainly will be a day when that great man shall be taken to rest in the country for which he died, the country that he so much loved. As far as we in the Patriotic Front are concerned, we say to the family, and we said amongst ourselves, that all we're looking for is temporary shelter for the mortal remains of our dear president, not for his final resting place, because that has to be in his dear country, because he fought for that country. He fought for its democracy. He died in pursuit of the democracy of Zambia. And that democracy is the vision that drives all of us in the Patriotic Front. And indeed, coming to your question, when President Edgar Lungu stepped aside after the elections of 2021, he said to me, in the presence of my colleagues, the ones whose names I've mentioned, he said, I have run my race. I will not continue. I would like you, my colleagues, to continue where I have left. And he turned to me and said, my brother, I know you told me in 2019 that you are retiring from politics, and that's why you did not even contest as Member of Parliament. However, I request you, may you hold the fort, lead the party. And I said to him, Your Excellency, this is an enormous task you're giving to me. And he said, I trust you. Lead the party. And yes, Ambassador, it hasn't been an easy journey. But I have to say here, it has been a journey where I have had and received, happily so, a lot of support from my colleagues in the Central Committee, from all leaders in different structures of the party. They have stood by me. I have not done it by myself, and I cannot credit myself for what we have done because we have done it together. I also ought to say that once in a while, I picked up the phone to consult my elder brother. Guide me. What should I do? Oftentimes he would say to me, learn the ropes. But there were also times when he came out to me and told me, my brother, this is what I suggest you do. So this journey, Ambassador, has not been a journey for an individual. This has been a journey for the party. And I'm determined to be a part of this team. And I'm sure that as a team, we will get to where President Edgar Chagwa Lungu wanted us to get. And that is to ensure that in 2026, we restore the democracy of Zambia. President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, being a keen follower of democracy and a promoter of democracy and a promoter of national unity, even when he was in retirement, he kept urging us in the Patriotic Front not to look upon ourselves as an end unto ourselves, but as a means to uniting the country. And he encouraged all of us to unite with other opposition political parties. The message he delivered to the Zambian people on the 28th of October 2023, when he returned to active politics, he said he was coming back to active politics, and he called upon all other political party leaders of different opposition political parties to come together, to unite with one purpose and one purpose only: to provide a democratic government that would ensure that Zambians enjoy their freedoms. That is what that man endeavored to achieve for his people, for his dear country. And we in the Patriotic Front are determined to do that one thing: to unite as a party and to unite as opposition political parties with only one vision in mind: to provide to the Zambian people an environment in which they can be happy, an environment in which they can call
Acting President,
Zambia as their country.
Yeah, Acting President, the current status of the Patriotic Front is in peril. Like I stated, the registered owners is, like I said, imposters, Robert Chavinga, against the law, against the constitution. The Electoral Commission of Zambia has disenfranchised the Patriotic Front from participating in by-elections. Your members of parliament have not been spared, despite strong leadership by Brian Mundubile at parliament. There's been chaos where you've lost over, I think, 6 seats, unfortunately, and the leadership at parliament, which the party had placed on, led by Brian Mundubile, has been removed. The people are worried. You have an enormous task as a Patriotic Front to participate in elections, to help build a strong opposition, to help prepare the country to go to elections and wrest power from President Hakainde Hichilema. Yet the party that's supposed to be an engine, the fulcrum of this development, lies in tatters. Just give us reflections about that.
To say that the Patriotic Front lies in tatters is to give undue credit to Hakainde Hichilema. Indeed, Hakainde Hichilema's intention by assisting the coup that occurred on the 24th of October 2023 was to decimate the Patriotic Front. Even when Miles Sampa, who was the kingpin of that coup, recollected his senses and came back to the party and declared that that coup must be invalidated, and that whatever was an outcome of that coup or so-called convention must be nullified, we saw that the Registrar of Societies decided they will not amend the list of office bearers. Instead, they continued to recognize Robert Chavinga and Ngonga, who, as a matter of fact, were a product of the illegal coup, the legal convention. And all this has happened because Hakainde has realized that he did not manage to achieve his objective of taking the Patriotic Front into obliteration. The Patriotic Front is not a piece of paper. The Patriotic Front ambassador is not the register at the Registrar of Societies office. No, the Patriotic Front is a spirit. The Patriotic Front are the people themselves, the people who hold legitimate positions right from the sections across the country, through branches, wards, constituencies, districts, provinces, and members of the Central Committee. Those are the Patriotic Front. Yes, we saw how quickly the UPN delegates at the Electoral Commission of Zambia decided to come up with an obnoxious regulation which has never ever existed in Zambia. It's an unprecedented regulation which requires that for any political party to participate in any national elections, the adoption certificates of the candidates in that election must be signed by a president and a secretary general, and that the electoral commission would go and compare the names with the names at the registrar of society's office. Never has that happened, never. We knew that they were doing that because they were targeting the Patriotic Front. And you may recall, and your viewers may recall, that for 1 year, the Patriotic Front did not take part in any elections. And that was because of that regulation that was introduced by the Electoral Commission of Zambia. We sat back and we said, we can continue to deny the Zambian people credible opposition. We cannot allow the Zambian people to go to the polls, be there by elections, without formidable opposition. We decided to join hands with our colleagues in UCA and later on in the Tonse Alliance. And in the Tonse Alliance, we sat and agreed that we're going to use a special purpose vehicle to participate in elections. And ever since then, we've been participating in all the by-elections. The Patriotic Front is alive and it is participating in these elections. Now, little wonder when you saw that in the recent by-elections, which are going to go to the polls on the 7th of August, the ECZ changed their position and said, besides ensuring that only the presidents and secretary general of the political parties will sign the adoption certificates, now even the regalia, the campaign materials of a political party that is not on the ballot paper will not be allowed. Now, this is going against the principle of freedom of expression. I can go to a by-election where I don't have a particular candidate from my party, but I can go and support a candidate of another political party. Nobody can stop me. And if I go there donning campaign material of my political party, it is not an offense. There is no such law in Zambia. And the reason they're doing that is because the ECZ, on behalf of Hakainde Hichilema, are scared stiff. Just the regalia of the Patriotic Front, particularly the regalia having the portrait of Edgar Lungu. I have said before, and I'll say again, they feared him in his life. They fear him more in his death. And I want to assure Zambians, the portrait of Edgar Lungu shall continue to haunt them, and we in the Patriotic Front shall continue to use it.
Indeed, Acting President, the Patriotic Front is in the hearts of people, not on a illegal paper held by an expelled MP from Mafinga. My dear cousins in Mafinga are also annoyed with their MP. Let us go to the current state of our country. I think, like we described what is happening to the PF, the people of Zambia had chosen President Hakainde Hichilema to replace President Edgar Lungu. President Hakainde Hichilema presented himself as a Mr. Fixer, that he was going to resolve the crisis of the country, the cost of living crisis. He said he was going to reduce the prices of foodstuffs, fuel, electricity, and other things. He said he will not allow borrowings and there will be a moratorium on debt. He said he will respect human rights and there will be rights and freedoms in the country. He has done the opposite. We are now being quoted that we have descended to a tyranny and a dictatorship. The cost of living crisis is actually even trebled than it was at 2021. He said he would not borrow. He accused you of borrowing a lot of loans, accumulating a lot of loans. He has also now hugely borrowed up to $4 billion in foreign loans, and he has ballooned the local debt from 178 billion kwacha to 236 billion kwacha. In every parameter, he's abusing human rights. And it's not you or me saying it. is being cited in respected national documents, Human Rights Watch, the United Nations Human Rights Council, the US country report that is killing, is engaged in extrajudicial killings, that he has stifled freedom of expression, that is implementing literally a tyranny with the passing of a cake and repressive laws. He has shut down freedom of expression in our country. Yet he preaches to the people that he has succeeded, that he has CDF and people are roaming freely in markets. Just speak to the state of the country right now.
You put it very well. And I'd like to start by talking about Parliament. And Parliament, because that is the epitome of the exercise of freedom of expression. That is the epitome of the practice of democracy in any democratic state. Let's take a little review of the performance of Parliament. In 4 years, your government has managed to ostracize 7 members of Parliament, all of them from the opposition. Your Parliament has had one of among itself abducted, left for dead, taken to a hospital, allowed to leave that hospital in very strange circumstances, and being away from the public eye. And yet your government gives it a blind eye, and your government decides to call by-elections rapidly to replace that member without showing any interest in trying to trace where one of its members of parliament is. Your government decided to go against the court in the matter of Malanji, Joseph Malanji, and Lusambo concerning the elections in their constituencies. Even when the Constitutional Court decided that those elections were illegal, your government under Hakainde Hichilema went ahead and held elections and even celebrate today that the people of Kabushi and Kwa elected members of parliament. And yet the truth of the matter was that there was a protest in those 2 constituencies. Today, you have a parliament where a member of parliament is indicted and convicted for what they say in parliament. Where is the principle of exclusive cognizance for parliament? Worldwide, what members of parliament say in parliament enjoys immunity under the principle of exclusive cognizance. And yet a parliamentarian, by stating that he suspected that some people had received bribes, that member of parliament today is incarcerated. Another member of parliament was incarcerated, a seat declared vacant, notwithstanding the fact that that member of parliament appealed their conviction. This member of parliament was simply asking, in response to a statement that was made by a person who said, if Edgar Lungu comes to our region, we shall kill him. And this member of parliament simply asked, is this the country we shall lead? Is this the country we shall have, where people are scared to go to visit certain regions? Should we all carry arms? That member of parliament was convicted. She appealed her conviction and is yet to appear in court. Meanwhile, her seat was declared vacant and an election declared. 2 members of parliament, one of them, unfortunately, a lame man, was convicted. A member of parliament convicted for arson. And people stated that after he committed arson, he ran away and he couldn't be apprehended by witnesses. A lame man a man who can't even run. He can hardly walk. Another one was convicted because somebody said he bought grass. And yet he was 100 kilometers away from the scene of arson. But simply because somebody said, yes, he was seen buying dry grass, which grass was meant for thatching a house. Just for that, he was convicted. Now, when you have a country in which the security of tenure of members of parliament is under constant threat, where 7 members of parliament have their seats declared vacant in a space of 4 years, where members of parliament, when they stand to defend the constitution, they are suspended, as the case occurred when members of parliament of the Patriotic stood up in parliament in the defense of the constitution when government was about to pass a national budget using an old constitution, a repealed constitution. The budget was quoting a repealed constitution. And members stood up and said, if we proceed with this budget under the premise of the provision of a repealed constitution, anyone in the country can go to court and challenge the legality of this budget. Instead of parliament listening to those members of parliament and supporting them, they were punished. Members of parliament in Zambia, as far as I am concerned, and you remember, Ambassador, I'm not talking from without. I was privileged to have been elected 4 consecutive times by the good people of Kabwata constituency. I was in parliament representing them religiously for 20 years. I therefore have 2 years experience of being a parliamentarian, 10 of which years I was in the opposition, and therefore nobody can tell me about opposition politics in parliament. Never ever have we seen before a situation where members of parliament get into dialogue with a speaker. No. The presiding officers are presiding officers. They are arbiters to make sure that there is free debate across the political divide. And yet today, when a member of parliament stands up and they say, I want to ask a question to the minister, even before the minister is given an opportunity to answer, the presiding officer is preferring an answer. How? If indeed Parliament is a neutral arbiter which allows the free flow and free exchange of policy ideas, parliamentarians representing different political parties, how come the presiding officers have answers on behalf of the executive? What this shows is that in Zambia, the executive is simply an appendage of the executive. Parliament is simply an appendage of the executive. But you can also extend this, Ambassador. You have heard how even the judiciary responds speedily to executive pronouncements. President Hakainde just wakes up one day and says, I want a fast-track court, the Economic and Financial Crimes Court, to be established. A few days later, the Chief Justice stands up and says, I have established this court. Establishing a division of the court, of the High Court, without following the due process of the law, simply because the president has pronounced his decree. In Zambia, Ambassador, we are being governed by decrees. We are not being governed by the principles of the separation of the 3 wings of government.
Thank you, President.
You just have to see, when you talk about the promises, Ambassador, when you talk about the promises, I want to draw one small little example. President Hakainde, in the run-up to the elections, promised the Zambian people that when you vote for him, he will make sure that every Zambian has 3 square meals a day. Only a few months ago, he was in his own village, where he was advising his fellow villagers that please, when you have supper, the remains of food, don't throw that food. Instead, keep it and give it to your children in the morning. Why this departure? Why this 180-degree shift? He promised that every Zambian would have 3 square meals a day. And now he's saying, don't even feed dogs with the remains of supper. This is the reason why, Ambassador, when you go around the streets of Lusaka, you rarely see stray dogs because people are not keeping dogs anymore. They can't afford them. And the reason they can't afford them is because they were duped. Their president promised that you'll have excess food.
Yes, Acting President. We'll be inviting callers shortly, and I hope that you can take some questions. But before I do that, the question of unity is becoming imperative. You've just immediately given us a broad picture of the state of the country. It's in dire strait. It's in a desperate state. People are saying they changed government in 2021 so that they could have a better life, better hope, and management of the affairs of the country better. They jumped from a pan into the fire. Things are worse. And now they are looking for leadership. Where is the leadership? The leadership is in the reservoir of you people in the opposition. But there it appears that everyone in the opposition is just pursuing their personal ambitions, their personal goals, and there doesn't seem to be very good unity that can inspire people. Credit to President Edgar Lungu. He tried very hard personally to bring the opposition together. I remember the first press conference that was attended by over 11 political parties, including Dr. Fred Membe and Winter Kabimba. In the background was President Edgar Lungu trying hard to put the opposition together. There was the formation of the United Kwacha Alliance. Now there was later a breakaway called Tonse Alliance, which you lead as chair. And there appears to be turbulence. And some political parties are not even members of any opposition alliance. This is worrying to the people of Zambia. What are you doing about this? Is a united front the answer to the people of Zambia, or will we allow whoever wishes to stand on their right? Wouldn't it give advantage to President Hakainde Hichilema, who nearly the entire country is complaining about?
The country's voice is very clear. There is a clarion call from many Zambians that we in the opposition must unite. Unity of opposition political parties is an imperative. We ought to unite. In pursuing that unity, we also ought to ensure that we do this without leaving any political party behind. We're living in very interesting times, because even during the subsistence, even during the life of President Edgar Lungu, there was always this tussling for who shall be the leader. And selecting a leader for the opposition cannot be kids' play. It requires synergy of the various players. In trying to arrive at that synergy, we must accept that there will be points of departure. Some of these points of departure may be handled in a very subtle manner. Some of them may be handled in a friendly manner. But also we have to accept the fact that we, leaders of different political parties, have a diversity that is a representation of the country at large. There are also others whose expression of misgivings could appear divisive. Now, those of us who are committed to unity of purpose are called to higher moral ground. Are we going to discard people like that? No. Instead, let's give them time. Let us try to use methods to reach out to them so they can see our views in so much as we're trying to see their views, so that we can come to common ground. The one thing is that the majority of us know that we stand stronger when we're united. We accept the fact that what brings us together is stronger and bigger than what separates us, because we're into this not for ourselves, we are into this for the country. So yes, we shall have challenges, we shall have difficulties, but as long as we are willing to listen to one another, and as long as we commit ourselves to handling these matters without self being at the center, putting Zambia at the center, putting not only the current population of Zambia, but putting Zambia's future population in the microscope and saying what is it that they deserve, we will certainly get there. And as for me, who was a close student of President Edgar Lungu, I know how much premium he attached to unity of purpose of opposition political parties. And I always call upon my colleagues in the Patriotic Front that we must not think that because we are the largest opposition political parties, therefore we can do this on our own. No, we only achieve this once we unite with those who are like-minded. But I also want to say, Ambassador, that we also ought to be cautious of the fact that we are facing what you yourself referred to as a tyrant, a man who would not give up power easily. He has already demonstrated his desire to decimate political parties. He tried with the PF. He also tried, by the way, with the United National Independence Party, the Independence Party of Zambia, the founding party of Zambia's democracy. He tried to destabilize UNIP. Fortunately, UNIP came over this matter quicker than us in the Patriotic Front. So there is also a possibility that even when we're pursuing the objective of opposition unity, there could be some people who are sponsored to come and destroy the very intentions that we have. And therefore we have to be very cautious. We have to tread carefully, because we may end up just pushing against a closed door for some people who may have been sponsored. As things stand now, I wouldn't point at any particular party, but just to say we are taking all these matters into consideration. Our purpose is to have unity of purpose, and that unity of purpose must be effective and sincere unity of purpose, pursuing the objective of providing alternative governance to the Zambian people.
This is DJ Mutati exclusive.
Alright, that's all for you today, lovely viewers. If you did enjoy the video, please don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section below. Tell me what you think about the video you just watched in the comment section below. I'll be super glad to hear from you, lovely viewers. Once again, I go by the name of Mutati Mpundu. I love you, peace, I gotta go.